Every journey begins with a single step. But once your eyes are closed, where does the journey lead? What if the memories you uncover and the messages you receive have been waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed? Join us as we step inside a Beyond Quantum Healing session with Holistic Soul Space BQH Facilitator Francis in Part 3, the session. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about here too is the healing aspect of the BQH, right? There's so much. You talked a little bit about how some of that can even happen prior to the session. How would you describe how healing happens in a BQH session?
Well, the first thing is all healing is self-healing. So I do not call myself a healer. I am not a healer, or I can be, I suppose, for my own body. But I certainly don't heal anyone else. What I do is hold space that allows other people's bodies to heal themselves, basically. But what happens during a BQH session? Normally it's at the point where I ask them to do a body scan. Invariably that will be something that the client has already questioned, that they want to know more about. Although occasionally there are things that are highlighted that haven't been in their conscious awareness. The higher self really does see all and know all. So if something is highlighted as needing some work, it can either be in the physical body or in the energetic bodies. Because every session is completely unique, it varies again from higher self to higher self, and how they do things. It would appear that they use light. Light is the healing force. So for energetic blockages, for example, there might be blockages in any of the energetic centres. People normally call them chakras. And the light quite literally just dissolves anything that's there. And invariably I will ask them to fill the gaps with divine light, because nature doesn't like a vacuum. So if we don't fill it up, then something else will come along and fill it up for us. However the higher self is doing it, I always ask them to show the client, give you a visual of what it is that they're doing, so that it's not something that's happening to you. It's you're there and it's happening with you rather than to you.
So do you find that it's always the higher self that's helping with the healing, or do they sometimes call in guides? What's been your experience?
So some things the higher self can do on their own, and there's other times where especially if it's something that's a bit more complex and needs more light, then we call in other light beings, and that could be healing guides, it could be archangels, it could be any of the ascended masters. We can ask source itself. So it's whatever's needed. If they need the big guns, then they bring in the big guns.
I love that. I love that. Is there anything that surprised you in the past when you've seen them doing a healing where you're just like, oh, well, that's something I never thought of?
I could say there's probably something in every session, that I always learn, I always grow during that session, every session. The higher self never fails to amaze me. Never fails to amaze me. It's seeing the expression on the client's face when they come back, when it's, and the sort of realization of what has happened is just dawning on them. I don't think I've had anyone who hasn't been completely blown away by what they've experienced.
Well, you talked a little bit about how you've seen how some of the healing has happened in a session. It's really interesting from your perspective, the things that, like you said, that you're learning each time. I love that. But this is something that I get asked a lot of times, for a lot of different spiritual practices. Does it make a difference if you're in person when you're doing this, or versus, well, I guess I should say versus online?
That was something that I was quite worried about, because if working online was going to be any less, then it's not something I would have wanted to do. However, those fears have been well allayed. I mean, it's called quantum healing hypnosis. Really, we're working in the etheric field. So, and it's all those beings that are helping us in the etheric field. There is no distance. There's no physicality really. So that there is no energetic distance between myself and the client. Our combined teams are all surrounding both of us. And I quite honestly, I feel that if I was to put my hand out, I can feel the person there in front of me. It's not just on the screen. That in itself it blows me away, because it's like, wow, how does that really happen? But that's what it is. It's so that we're in the same energetic space, although we might be several thousand miles apart.
That's mind blowing. In fact, one time you and I were having this discussion and you talked about feeling waves of energy during a session. Has there ever been moments where, you've been affected physically during a healing?
Yes, the energetics of it all, not just the healing, it does affect my physical body. So I often get blurred eyes that can last for several hours to several days, depending on the intensity of the energy. And I'm told, because I have asked this question, and I did ask the question in a session, was, why is this happening? And it's so that I am able to see the subtle world more easily.
Oh,
and
wow.
not be. It's a bit strange, because like everything is just slightly blurred. I can still see, but everything is just slightly blurred. Whether it's here or whether it's in the distance, but apparently it's to let me see the more of the subtle world.
Wow.
But whenever spirit move close to me, my cheeks flush. So it's
Right.
it happens. I suppose it first really happened when I was sitting for trance, and when that spirit being came so close, then my body hit up exponentially, and my cheeks did flush. But when during a session, so I'm surrounded by my own higher self. There literally there's teams teams of people. I know some people don't like using the word teams. I love my teams, so it's I use it with affection. But being surrounded by so many beings, the heat and the flushing happens invariably every session. There's
Right.
and another thing that happens is our digestive systems get a bit growly, both mine and the clients, and that I am told is because of the energy moving.
I love that you brought that up because I'm going to flip to a clip here of a little montage of what I noticed during my session. Because this happens to me sometimes when I give readings. If I am feeling spirit a little too much, my body wants to release. So you talked about being growly. My release is yawning. So that's always so hard when you're trying to give somebody a reading. You're like, I'm not bored. It's just I'm releasing all this extra spirit. And I was just laughing through the whole session because it was just like yawn after yawn. I'm like, well, I guess we were really feeling it that day. But I love the growly stomachs. And so that leads right into the next question. I'm sure people worry that they won't be able to enter a hypnotic state deeply enough. And since you just spoke about how sometimes people, or often people, are aware of, kind of in the background, like I said, I felt like I was just watching a show. I know I'm talking, but it's just, let me ask, how can you set people's minds at ease about any worry they might have about not being deep enough?
Everybody goes through different states of consciousness as they go about their daily lives. So we actually flit in and out of different altered states. In hypnosis, we talk about using the somnambulistic state, which actually means sleepwalking. It's the same part of the brain that uses dreams, which is why it is so dreamlike. And everybody goes into a somnambulistic state at least twice a day. So before, just as you're falling asleep and just as you're waking up. Everybody can do it. There's no fear there. I always know when the conscious mind is trying to make its way in. When the client says, "I don't know,"
Mm-hmm.
as soon as a client says, "I don't know," I know that's the conscious mind that I'm talking to. But I have a whole load of tricks that I can use
Right.
to get people into the deeper state that they need to be. So you don't need to worry about or being in the right place. I will get you in the right place.
Perfect. Which is why this is such a beautiful experience, is having somebody that's trained that can help you. Why this? Because some people might wonder, oh, okay, well, I could just do this on my own. And to be honest, yes, I teach people techniques on how to speak with their higher self, but there's just so much more when we can, and this is the same for channeling, when we can get out of the way that can
Exactly.
come through. And actually, this is a question I think some people might have that I think you could really put some insight into. Because when we talk about receiving information like this through any of our clear senses, whether that be being able to see things, feel things, hear things, know things, a common question that people will ask is, how do I know that I'm getting real information and I'm not just imagining it? Right? So, how do you help your clients kind of distinguish between imagination and genuine information that's coming through?
Why it is confusing is because the higher self actually uses our imagination to communicate. That also, well, for me, is why the imagination has been put down over the years, is to try and stop people from communicating with their higher selves. But as far as the information that comes, I always ask everyone to use their intuition. So it's whatever that first thought, and it doesn't matter how weird, wonderful, crazy sounding that it might be, whatever that first thought is, then it's always right. It's only if the conscious mind is starting to come in, that it's the conscious mind that is having, might be, it could be your conscious mind that's answering the question, for example.
Right.
I just, well, I suppose it's a intuition on my own part, as to whether or not it's the higher self that's coming through, or if it's the conscious mind I'm talking to.
It's interesting how spirit likes to use things that we will get on a surface level and yet still understand more and more as time goes on. So that's what I find fascinating about this whole session anyway, is that you're getting all this information, these answers to your questions that you've had, but there's more. There's more even afterwards that'll come to you, or you'll listen to the session. And thank you. I love that you record the sessions for your clients, because it is surprising how, and it's this way often when you get message from a spirit, let's say if you've had any sort of reading or that type of thing, because you go in with your preconceived I'm expecting XYZ answers, right? And they know so much more about us, and they know what we need. And so sometimes that's what I love about getting messages this way, because the things that we need will come later if you just keep listening back to the session. So beautiful, beautiful experiences. What happens, would you say, when a client encounters maybe something that's an emotional or a challenging memory? How does that usually play out for you?
Most clients, if not all, have an emotional release of some sort. It's the easiest way of clearing an energetic block is to have that emotional release. So most people cry, and I have had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable at somebody being upset in front of me and not actually step in and do anything about it.
Right.
Because the higher self never gives anybody more than they can handle. And I completely trust that that's the case. I am able to suggest that a client is just an observer and doesn't actually have to feel the emotion. But if I do that, then I could be doing that client a disservice. It's all about the client. For me, it's all about the best.
Right.
The client having the best experience that they can. And it's the understanding that an emotional release is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. So after the upset, after the emotions have been released, there's always something uplifting that happens thereafter. So it's the higher self has everything under control. I just have to sit here as the guide and ask questions, which is what I think I was put in this earth to do, because I've asked questions right from the word, or from being able to speak. And it's and I don't ever take a surface answer. I always like to dig deeper. So it's really it's the ideal job.
Other than crying, do you ever notice any other signs that someone is having maybe a particularly deep or transformative session?
Every session is transformative. Every session is transformative. It's what happens thereafter, really, that's the whether or not that makes any difference to the person's life. So the session is really, if you can count the session as being day one of the rest of your life. Your higher self will always give you advice and guidance about moving forward. It's your higher self that tells you how often that they think that you should be listening to the recording. And that's really important, because it's embedding it in your consciousness, and that's what helps to make it a reality.